Question 1. Cost-benefit analysis shows that implementing a phased data migration strategy for IBM SmartCloud Notes hybrid configuration and onboard data transfer offers significant advantages. Which of the following approaches best aligns with optimizing this process while ensuring regulatory compliance? Option A. Focus exclusively on minimizing upfront infrastructure costs for data transfer, even if it means a longer migration period and less robust monitoring. Option B. Implement a single, large-scale data transfer event to complete the migration as quickly as possible, without intermediate validation steps. Option C. Prioritize a phased migration with continuous monitoring of data integrity, transfer speeds, and associated costs, allowing for iterative adjustments based on performance metrics and regulatory adherence. Option D. Immediately deploy the highest bandwidth data transfer solution available to expedite the migration, assuming that speed is the primary driver of cost-benefit. Correct answer is C. Prioritize a phased migration with continuous monitoring of data integrity, transfer speeds, and associated costs, allowing for iterative adjustments based on performance metrics and regulatory adherence. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in hybrid cloud deployments, optimizing data transfer processes for efficiency and cost-effectiveness while adhering to regulatory compliance. The professional challenge lies in balancing the immediate benefits of faster data migration against the long-term implications of data integrity, security, and potential regulatory penalties. Careful judgment is required to select a strategy that not only meets technical requirements, but also aligns with the specific regulatory framework governing IBM SmartCloud Notes hybrid configurations and onboard data transfer. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a phased migration strategy. This allows for thorough testing and validation at each stage, minimizing the risk of data corruption or loss during the transition. It also enables continuous monitoring of performance and costs, facilitating adjustments to optimize the process. From a regulatory perspective, a phased approach provides better audit trails and demonstrates due diligence in managing data, which is crucial for compliance with data protection and privacy regulation. This methodical process ensures that data integrity is maintained throughout the migration, a key requirement for any regulated environment. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the fastest available transfer method without adequate testing or validation would be professionally unacceptable. This could lead to data loss or corruption, resulting in significant business disruption and potential regulatory noncompliance. Such a failure to ensure data integrity could trigger investigations and penalties under data protection laws. Another incorrect approach, such as neglecting to monitor transfer costs, could lead to budget overruns, demonstrating poor financial management and a lack of foresight in process optimization. This can also indirectly impact regulatory compliance if cost-cutting measures lead to compromises in security or data handling practices. A third incorrect approach, ignoring the specific requirements of the IBM SmartCloud Notes hybrid configuration and onboard data transfer guidelines, would be a direct violation of the exam's jurisdictional scope, leading to misconfiguration and potential system instability, which in turn could have security and compliance implications. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a comprehensive understanding of the project's technical requirements, regulatory obligations, and business objectives. This involves conducting a thorough risk assessment for each potential data transfer strategy, evaluating not only speed and cost, but also data integrity, security, and compliance implications. The process should include pilot testing, phased implementation, continuous monitoring, and regular reporting. This iterative approach allows for informed adjustments and ensures that the chosen strategy remains optimal and compliant throughout the migration lifecycle. Question 2. Compliance review shows that a financial services firm is planning to migrate a significant portion of its customer data from an on-premises IBM Lotus Notes environment to a hybrid IBM SmartCloud Notes configuration. The onboard data transfer process is scheduled to commence next quarter. The firm's internal audit team has flagged concerns regarding the depth of the impact assessment conducted for this migration, specifically questioning whether it adequately addresses the regulatory requirements for data privacy and security in a hybrid cloud context. Which of the following approaches to the impact assessment best aligns with the regulatory framework for data handling in hybrid cloud environments and demonstrates robust due diligence? Option A high-level assessment focusing on the volume of data to be transferred and the estimated downtime, assuming existing on-premises security policies will be extended to the cloud. Option B, an assessment that primarily quantifies the cost savings expected from the hybrid cloud migration, with a cursory review of data transfer speeds. Option C, a detailed assessment that maps all sensitive customer data types, analyzes their classification, evaluates the security controls for data in transit and at rest within the hybrid configuration, and identifies potential compliance gaps against relevant data protection regulations. Option D, an assessment that relies on the vendor's IBM standard security documentation for SmartCloud notes, without specific analysis of the firm's unique data and regulatory obligations. The correct answer is A, a high-level assessment focusing on the volume of data to be transferred and the estimated downtime, assuming existing on-premises security policies will be extended to the cloud. Explanation: scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in hybrid cloud environments where data resides both on-premises and in a cloud service. The core difficulty lies in ensuring that the impact assessment for a planned migration accurately reflects the risks associated with data transfer and ongoing hybrid operations, particularly concerning data privacy and security. The challenge is amplified by the need to comply with specific regulatory frameworks governing data handling and cloud services, which often have stringent requirements for data classification, access controls, and incident response. A superficial impact assessment can lead to unforeseen compliance breaches, security vulnerabilities, and operational disruptions. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a comprehensive and granular impact assessment that meticulously documents the data types being transferred, their sensitivity levels, and the security controls in place both during transit and at rest in the hybrid environment. This includes identifying all potential points of failure, unauthorized access vectors, and data leakage risks. It necessitates a thorough understanding of the IBM SmartCloud notes hybrid configuration and the onboard data transfer mechanisms, aligning with the specific regulatory framework for the exam jurisdiction. This approach ensures that potential risks are identified, quantified, and mitigated proactively, demonstrating due diligence and adherence to compliance mandates. It prioritizes data protection and operational resilience, which are paramount in regulated industries. Incorrect approach is analysis, an approach that focuses solely on the technical aspects of data transfer without considering the regulatory implications of data residency, privacy, and security in a hybrid model is fundamentally flawed. This overlooks critical compliance requirements and exposes the organization to significant legal and financial penalties. Another incorrect approach would be to assume that existing on-premises security controls are automatically sufficient for the hybrid environment. This fails to account for the unique security challenges of cloud integration and data transit, potentially leaving data vulnerable. A third incorrect approach is to conduct a high-level impact assessment that does not delve into the specifics of data classification and access management within the hybrid setup. This lack of detail can lead to misidentification of risks and the implementation of inadequate mitigation strategies, directly contravening regulatory expectations for robust data governance. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach impact assessments by first identifying the relevant regulatory framework and its specific requirements for data handling in hybrid cloud scenarios. This should be followed by a detailed inventory and classification of all data to be migrated and managed in the hybrid environment. Next, a risk assessment should be performed, considering technical, operational, and compliance risks at each stage of the data lifecycle: transfer, storage, access, deletion. Mitigation strategies should then be developed and documented, with clear responsibilities assigned. Finally, a continuous monitoring and review process should be established to ensure ongoing compliance and adapt to evolving threats and regulatory changes. Question 3. Assessment of the most appropriate stakeholder-driven strategy for ensuring regulatory compliance when configuring IBM SmartCloud notes for hybrid data transfer, considering data classification and residency requirements. Option A. Delegate the responsibility for ensuring data protection during hybrid transfers entirely to the end users of IBM SmartCloud notes, assuming they possess adequate knowledge of compliance mandates. Option B. Rely on the default security configurations provided by IBM SmartCloud notes, assuming they meet all necessary compliance standards for all data types. Option C. Prioritize the speed and efficiency of data transfer operations, deferring detailed security and compliance verification to a later stage. Option D. Conduct a thorough review of IBM SmartCloud Notes data transfer features against the organization's data classification policies and applicable regulatory frameworks, ensuring encryption, data residency, and auditability are met. The correct answer is D. Conduct a thorough review of IBM SmartCloud Notes data transfer features against the organization's data classification policies and applicable regulatory frameworks, ensuring encryption, data residency, and auditability are met. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in hybrid cloud environments where sensitive data resides both on-premises and in a cloud service. The primary challenge lies in ensuring consistent data protection and compliance across these disparate environments, especially when data is being transferred or synchronized. The need to balance operational efficiency with robust security and regulatory adherence requires careful consideration of data handling policies and technical controls. The stakeholder perspective is critical because different groups, e.g., IT administrators, compliance officers, end users, business leaders, have varying priorities and responsibilities regarding data. Misalignment can lead to security gaps, compliance violations, and operational disruptions. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a comprehensive review of IBM SmartCloud Notes data transfer capabilities in the context of the organization's specific data classification policies and relevant regulatory frameworks. This includes understanding how data is encrypted during transit and at rest, verifying that the chosen transfer methods align with data residency requirements, and ensuring that audit trails are maintained for all data movements. This approach is best professional practice because it proactively addresses potential risks by aligning technical configurations with established governance and compliance mandates. It demonstrates due diligence in protecting sensitive information and meeting legal obligations, which is paramount in regulated industries. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach is to assume that default security settings for IBM SmartCloud Notes are sufficient for all data types and regulatory requirements. This is a failure of due diligence and can lead to regulatory noncompliance if sensitive data is not adequately protected during transfer or if data residency laws are violated. It ignores the principle of least privilege and the need for tailored security based on data sensitivity. Another incorrect approach is to prioritize speed of data transfer over security and compliance verification. This can result in data breaches, unauthorized access, or the transfer of data to non-compliant locations, leading to significant legal and financial penalties. It represents a failure to uphold professional responsibility for data security and regulatory adherence. A third incorrect approach is to rely solely on end-user discretion for data handling during hybrid transfers. End users may not be fully aware of the sensitive nature of data or the specific compliance requirements, leading to accidental data exposure or misclassification. This approach outsources critical compliance responsibilities without adequate oversight or training, which is a significant ethical and regulatory failing. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach, starting with a thorough understanding of the data being handled, its classification, and the applicable regulatory landscape, e.g., GDPR, HIPAA, CCPA, depending on the jurisdiction. This involves consulting with legal and compliance teams to define clear policies for data transfer and storage in a hybrid environment. Technical implementation should then be guided by these policies, with a focus on encryption, access controls, and auditability. Regular reviews and updates to these configurations are essential to adapt to evolving threats and regulatory changes. The stakeholder perspective should be integrated throughout this process, ensuring that all relevant parties are informed and their concerns are addressed. Question 4. Comparative studies suggest that during the migration of sensitive client data to IBM SmartCloud Notes in a hybrid configuration, financial services firms face a critical decision regarding data transfer methodologies. Considering the stringent regulatory environment governing financial data, which of the following approaches best balances the need for efficient data onboarding with the absolute imperative of data security and client confidentiality? Option A. Prioritize the fastest possible data transfer by disabling encryption during the initial bulk transfer to reduce overhead, with plans to encrypt the data post-migration. Option B. Implement a phased data transfer process, utilizing strong end-to-end encryption for all data in transit and at rest, coupled with granular access controls for authorized personnel only, and conducting regular security audits. Option C. Transfer data in its raw, unencrypted format to a temporary staging server accessible via a broad network connection, with the intention of encrypting it only after the entire migration is complete and verified. Option D. Rely solely on the inherent security features of the IBM SmartCloud Notes platform without implementing additional encryption or access controls, assuming the platform's security is sufficient for all data types. The correct answer is B. Implement a phased data transfer process, utilizing strong end-to-end encryption for all data in transit and at rest, coupled with granular access controls for authorized personnel only, and conducting regular security audits. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge because the client, a financial services firm, is undergoing a significant migration to IBM SmartCloud Notes. This migration involves transferring sensitive client data, necessitating strict adherence to data privacy regulations and security protocols. The challenge lies in balancing the client's desire for a swift and cost-effective migration with the absolute requirement to protect confidential information and comply with relevant legal frameworks. The firm's reputation and the client's trust are at stake. The correct approach, which involves a phased data transfer with robust encryption and access controls, represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the core regulatory and ethical obligations. Specifically, it aligns with data protection principles that mandate safeguarding sensitive information during transit and at rest. By implementing encryption, the firm ensures that even if data is intercepted, it remains unreadable, thereby preventing unauthorized disclosure. Strict access controls limit who can view and manage the data, reinforcing the principle of least privilege and minimizing the risk of internal breaches. This methodical approach demonstrates due diligence and a commitment to client confidentiality, which are paramount in the financial services industry. An incorrect approach that prioritizes speed over security by transferring data without adequate encryption would represent a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This would violate data protection laws that require appropriate technical and organizational measures to ensure the security of personal data. Such a failure could lead to severe penalties, including substantial fines, legal action, and irreparable damage to the firm's reputation. Another incorrect approach, such as neglecting to obtain explicit client consent for the specific data transfer methods and security measures employed, would also be a breach of ethical conduct and potentially regulatory requirements related to informed consent and transparency. Clients have a right to know how their data is being handled, especially during a migration. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a thorough understanding of the regulatory landscape and the specific data sensitivity involved. This should be followed by a risk assessment to identify potential vulnerabilities in the migration process. Subsequently, a strategy should be developed that prioritizes security and compliance, even if it means a slightly longer or more resource-intensive implementation. Regular communication with the client, transparency about the process, and continuous monitoring of security measures are crucial throughout the project lifecycle. Question 5. Operational review demonstrates that the organization is planning to migrate a significant volume of sensitive customer data from an on-premises IBM SmartCloud Notes environment to a hybrid cloud configuration. The chosen data transfer method is a direct synchronization tool that has been validated for technical performance. However, there is a lack of clarity regarding the specific data residency requirements and the implications of the chosen cloud provider's data processing locations under the relevant regulatory framework. What is the most critical next step to ensure compliance and mitigate risk? Option A. Prioritize optimizing the data transfer speed and efficiency to minimize downtime for end users. Option B. Immediately proceed with the data transfer, relying on the technical validation of the synchronization tool to ensure data integrity and security. Option C. Conduct a thorough assessment of the data's sensitivity and map its flow against the specific data protection and residency regulations applicable to the data subject's jurisdiction and the organization's operational footprint. Option D. Engage the cloud provider to confirm their standard data handling practices and assume these align with all applicable regulatory requirements. The correct answer is C. Conduct a thorough assessment of the data's sensitivity and map its flow against the specific data protection and residency regulations applicable to the data subject's jurisdiction and the organization's operational footprint. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in hybrid cloud environments where data residency and compliance requirements are paramount. The professional must balance the technical feasibility of data transfer with the stringent legal and regulatory obligations governing data handling. The challenge lies in interpreting and applying the specific data protection regulations relevant to the jurisdiction of the data subjects and the organization, ensuring that no data is transferred or processed in a manner that violates these laws. Misinterpreting or overlooking these requirements can lead to significant legal penalties, reputational damage, and loss of customer trust. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough understanding of the IBM SmartCloud Notes hybrid configuration and the specific data transfer mechanisms employed. It requires identifying the data's origin and destination, assessing the data's sensitivity, and then verifying that the chosen transfer method and the target environment meet the regulatory framework's requirements for data protection, privacy, and sovereignty. This includes ensuring appropriate data encryption, access controls, and audit trails are in place, and that any cross-border data transfers comply with stipulated legal mechanisms, e.g., adequacy decisions, standard contractual clauses, or binding corporate rules, if applicable within the exam's specified jurisdiction. Adherence to these principles ensures legal compliance and safeguards sensitive information. Incorrect approach is analysis. Proceeding with data transfer without a clear understanding of the regulatory framework's implications for data residency and privacy is a direct violation of compliance obligations. This approach ignores the legal requirements for data protection, potentially exposing the organization to penalties for unauthorized data processing or transfer. Focusing solely on the technical aspects of data transfer, such as speed and efficiency, without considering the regulatory landscape, is also a failure. Technical solutions must always be implemented within a compliant framework. This approach risks overlooking critical security and privacy controls mandated by law. Assuming that standard data transfer protocols inherently satisfy all regulatory requirements is a dangerous assumption. Regulations often impose specific conditions on data handling, such as consent, data minimization, or specific security measures, which may not be addressed by generic protocols alone. This oversight can lead to noncompliance. Professional reasoning. Professionals in this domain must adopt a risk-based, compliance-first approach. The decision-making process should begin with a comprehensive assessment of regulatory requirements relevant to the data being handled and the operational context. This involves consulting legal and compliance teams, understanding data classification, and mapping data flows against legal obligations. When configuring hybrid solutions and planning data transfers, the primary consideration should be adherence to the specified regulatory framework. Technical solutions should be selected and configured to meet these compliance mandates, not the other way around. Continuous monitoring and auditing are essential to ensure ongoing compliance. Question 6. To address the challenge of migrating user data to IBM SmartCloud Notes in a hybrid configuration, what is the most critical initial step to ensure compliance with data residency requirements and IBM's guidelines for onboard data transfer from a stakeholder perspective? Option A. Proceeding with the data transfer using the default settings of the IBM Onboard Data Transfer tool, assuming they are compliant with general data protection principles. Option B. Relying on the assumption that IBM SmartCloud Notes, being a cloud service, inherently handles data residency in a manner that satisfies all regulatory obligations without explicit verification. Option C. Confirming the target IBM SmartCloud Notes environment's configuration and location explicitly meets all identified data residency requirements for the user data being transferred, in consultation with legal and compliance teams, before initiating any data transfer. Option D. Initiating the data transfer immediately to meet project timelines and addressing any potential data residency concerns post-migration through a separate remediation effort. Correct answer is C. Confirming the target IBM SmartCloud Notes environment's configuration and location explicitly meets all identified data residency requirements for the user data being transferred, in consultation with legal and compliance teams, before initiating any data transfer. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent complexities of migrating sensitive user data in a hybrid cloud environment, specifically concerning data residency and compliance with IBM SmartCloud Notes and onboard data transfer guidelines. The primary challenge lies in ensuring that the data transfer process adheres to all applicable regulations and IBM's stipulated best practices for data handling, security, and privacy, especially when dealing with user data that may have specific residency requirements. Careful judgment is required to balance operational efficiency with the absolute necessity of regulatory compliance and user trust. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough understanding and verification of data residency requirements before initiating the data transfer. This proactive stance ensures that the migration plan aligns with all legal and contractual obligations, preventing potential breaches of data privacy laws and IBM's own compliance frameworks. By engaging relevant stakeholders, including legal and compliance teams, and confirming the target environment's compliance with data residency mandates, the organization demonstrates due diligence and a commitment to ethical data handling. This minimizes the risk of regulatory penalties, reputational damage, and loss of customer confidence. An incorrect approach that fails to verify data residency before transfer is professionally unacceptable because it directly violates the principle of lawful data processing and potentially breaches data protection regulations. This could lead to significant legal ramifications, including fines and sanctions, and erode user trust. Another incorrect approach that relies solely on the default settings of the data transfer tool without explicit verification of their compliance with specific data residency mandates is also flawed. Default settings may not account for all jurisdictional nuances or specific organizational policies, leading to inadvertent noncompliance. A third incorrect approach that postpones the data residency verification until after the transfer is completed is critically negligent. This reactive approach leaves the organization exposed to the risk of having to remediate a non-compliant migration, which is far more costly and complex than proactive planning, and could result in severe regulatory penalties for past noncompliance. The professional reasoning framework for such situations involves a multi-step process. 1. Identify and understand all applicable regulatory requirements and organizational policies related to data handling and residency. 2. Assess the specific data being transferred and its potential residency implications. 3. Consult with legal, compliance, and security teams to validate the understanding of requirements and potential risks. 4. Develop a migration plan that explicitly addresses and incorporates data residency controls. 5. Implement and rigorously test the plan, ensuring all controls are functioning as intended. 6. Document all steps taken and decisions made for auditability and accountability. Question 7. The assessment process reveals that the client's internal IT team is responsible for the initial onboarding of data to IBM SmartCloud Notes in a hybrid configuration. While the team has general IT experience, they have limited specific knowledge of IBM SmartCloud Notes hybrid data transfer mechanisms and the associated data protection regulations. Which approach best mitigates the risks of data integrity issues and regulatory noncompliance during this critical phase? Option A. Engage a specialized IBM partner with proven expertise in SmartCloud Notes, hybrid configurations, and data transfer to oversee and execute the data onboarding process. Option B. Prioritize the speed of data migration by skipping detailed data validation and security checks to meet the client's aggressive timeline. Option C. Rely on generic cloud data migration, best practices without specific consideration for IBM SmartCloud Notes hybrid nuances or applicable data protection laws. Option D. Proceed with the data onboarding using only the internal IT team, assuming their general IT experience is sufficient for the task. The correct answer is A. Engage a specialized IBM partner with proven expertise in SmartCloud Notes, hybrid configurations, and data transfer to oversee and execute the data onboarding process. Explanation. The assessment process reveals a common challenge in hybrid cloud deployments: ensuring data integrity and compliance during the initial onboarding of data to IBM SmartCloud notes from an on-premises environment. This scenario is professionally challenging because it involves balancing the technical requirements of data migration with the stringent regulatory obligations governing data privacy and security. The client's internal IT team, while technically proficient, may lack specific expertise in the nuances of IBM Smart Cloud Notes hybrid configurations and the associated compliance frameworks. This necessitates a careful approach that prioritizes data protection and adheres to relevant regulations throughout the data transfer process. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it proactively addresses potential compliance gaps and data integrity risks. By engaging a specialized IBM partner with proven expertise in Smart Cloud Notes hybrid configurations and data transfer, the organization leverages external knowledge to ensure the migration is performed according to IBM's best practices and relevant regulatory guidelines. This partner can implement robust data validation checks, encryption protocols, and access controls, thereby minimizing the risk of data corruption, unauthorized access, or noncompliance with data protection laws. This proactive engagement demonstrates due diligence and a commitment to safeguarding sensitive information. An incorrect approach that relies solely on the internal IT team without specialized external validation is professionally unacceptable due to several potential regulatory and ethical failures. Firstly, it risks non-compliance with data protection regulations, e.g., GDPR, CCPA, depending on the jurisdiction specified for the exam, which is assumed to be US-based for this example. Without specific expertise in the hybrid configuration and data transfer mechanisms, the team might inadvertently create data exposure points or fail to implement adequate security measures during the transfer, leading to breaches. Secondly, it could violate data integrity principles by not employing sufficient validation and reconciliation processes, potentially leading to corrupted or incomplete data in the cloud environment. Ethically, this approach could be seen as a failure to exercise due care and diligence in protecting client or organizational data. Another incorrect approach, which involves prioritizing speed of migration over thorough validation and security checks, is also professionally unacceptable. This haste can lead to overlooking critical security configurations or data integrity checks, increasing the likelihood of data loss or security incidents. This directly contravenes the ethical obligation to protect data and the regulatory requirement to implement appropriate technical and organizational measures. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a risk-based assessment. First, identify the critical components of the migration, particularly those involving sensitive data. Second, evaluate the internal team's expertise against the complexity and regulatory requirements of the task. Third, if a gap exists, explore options for augmenting expertise, such as engaging specialized consultants or partners. Fourth, prioritize compliance and data integrity throughout the project lifecycle, ensuring that all steps are documented and auditable. Finally, conduct thorough post-migration validation and security audits to confirm successful and compliant data transfer. Question 8. Market research demonstrates that organizations are increasingly adopting hybrid cloud strategies for their email and collaboration platforms, but often underestimate the complexities of data residency requirements within specific regulatory frameworks. For an IBM Smart Cloud Notes hybrid configuration, which approach best ensures compliance with data residency laws and protects client data from unauthorized cross-border transfer. Option A. Implement a data classification policy and configure the IBM Smart Cloud Notes hybrid environment to ensure that data subject to specific residency mandates is stored and processed exclusively within the approved geographic boundaries, with strict access controls for any interjurisdictional data movement. Option B. Prioritize the seamless migration of all user mailboxes to the cloud component of the hybrid solution to maximize the benefits of cloud scalability, with a plan to address any data residency concerns post-migration if they arise. Option C. Rely on the default settings of the IBM Smart Cloud Notes hybrid configuration, which are designed for broad international compatibility, and assume that these settings will satisfy the specific data residency requirements of the organization's primary operating jurisdiction. Option D. Configure the hybrid solution to leverage the most performant data transfer protocols, assuming that the cloud provider's global infrastructure inherently meets all jurisdictional data residency needs. Correct answer is D. Configure the hybrid solution to leverage the most performant data transfer protocols, assuming that the cloud provider's global infrastructure inherently meets all jurisdictional data residency needs. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in hybrid cloud environments where data residency and compliance requirements are paramount. The professional is tasked with configuring IBM SmartCloud notes for hybrid setup, which inherently involves data residing both on-premises and in the cloud. The core challenge lies in balancing the benefits of cloud migration, scalability, accessibility, with the stringent regulatory obligations concerning data location and access. Misinterpreting or inadequately addressing these requirements can lead to significant legal penalties, reputational damage, and loss of customer trust. The professional must navigate the complexities of data transfer, storage, and access controls within the defined regulatory framework. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough understanding and explicit adherence to the specified regulatory framework for data residency and transfer. This means identifying the precise regulations governing where data can be stored and processed, and ensuring that the IBM SmartCloud Notes hybrid configuration strictly complies with these mandates. For example, if the jurisdiction mandates that certain sensitive data must remain within national borders, the configuration must ensure that data is not transferred or replicated to servers outside those borders. This approach prioritizes legal and ethical compliance, safeguarding the organization and its clients from regulatory breaches. It demonstrates a commitment to responsible data management and builds trust by assuring stakeholders that their data is handled in accordance with all applicable laws. Incorrect approach is analysis, an approach that prioritizes only the technical feasibility of data transfer without considering regulatory constraints is professionally unacceptable. This would involve configuring the hybrid solution based solely on network performance or ease of implementation, potentially leading to data being stored or processed in non-compliant locations. The regulatory failure here is a direct violation of data residency laws, which can result in severe fines and legal action. Another incorrect approach would be to assume that all data can be treated uniformly for migration purposes. This overlooks the possibility of data classification and the existence of regulations that apply differently to various types of data, e.g., personal data vs. general business data. Failing to differentiate and apply appropriate controls based on data sensitivity and regulatory requirement is a significant ethical and legal lapse, exposing the organization to risks associated with non-compliance for specific data categories. A third incorrect approach is to rely on vague or generalized compliance statements without verifying specific regulatory requirements. This might involve assuming that a cloud-ready solution inherently meets all jurisdictional needs. This is a dangerous assumption, as cloud provider compliance does not automatically translate to specific organizational compliance within a given jurisdiction. The failure lies in the lack of due diligence and the abdication of responsibility for understanding and implementing specific legal obligations. Professional reasoning. Professionals in this field must adopt a risk-based, compliance-first mindset. The decision-making process should begin with a comprehensive review of all applicable regulatory frameworks relevant to the organization's operating jurisdiction and the type of data being handled. This involves consulting legal counsel and compliance officers. When configuring hybrid solutions like IBM SmartCloud Notes, the primary consideration should always be how the configuration impacts data residency, access, and transfer in relation to these regulations. Technical solutions should be designed to *enable compliance, not to be implemented in isolation from it. Professionals should document all compliance-related decisions and configurations, creating an audit trail that demonstrates due diligence. In situations of ambiguity, seeking clarification from regulatory bodies or legal experts is a sign of professional responsibility. Question 9. Process analysis reveals that a company is planning to implement an IBM SmartCloud Notes hybrid configuration to leverage cloud-based services while retaining some on-premises infrastructure. During the planning phase, it becomes apparent that a significant portion of customer data resides in a specific geographical location subject to strict data residency laws. The technical team proposes a hybrid setup that would involve transferring a subset of this data to the cloud for enhanced accessibility and collaboration, but without a clear understanding of whether the proposed cloud region complies with the original data residency mandates or contractual agreements. What is the most appropriate course of action to ensure regulatory compliance and ethical data handling? Option A. Proceed with the hybrid configuration as planned, assuming that the technical capabilities of IBM SmartCloud nodes will automatically manage data residency compliance, and that any potential issues can be addressed post-implementation. Option B. Conduct a thorough review of all applicable data residency laws, customer contracts, and internal data governance policies to confirm that the proposed cloud region for data transfer meets all legal and contractual requirements before proceeding with the hybrid configuration. Option C. Transfer the data to the cloud region that offers the best technical performance and cost efficiency, and then seek legal counsel to retroactively address any potential data residency violations. Option D. Prioritize the technical benefits and cost savings of the hybrid configuration, and only investigate data residency concerns if a specific regulatory audit or customer complaint arises. The correct answer is B. Conduct a thorough review of all applicable data residency laws, customer contracts, and internal data governance policies to confirm that the proposed cloud region for data transfer meets all legal and contractual requirements before proceeding with the hybrid configuration. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in hybrid cloud environments where data residency and compliance requirements are paramount. The core difficulty lies in balancing the technical feasibility of data transfer with the strict legal and regulatory obligations concerning customer data. Organizations must ensure that data is not moved to or processed in jurisdictions that violate customer agreements or applicable laws, even if such a move offers technical or cost advantages. The complexity is amplified by the need to maintain data integrity and security throughout the migration process, while also adhering to the specific data protection principles mandated by the relevant regulatory framework. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough review of existing data residency policies, customer contracts, and the specific regulatory framework governing the data. This includes identifying the current location of the data, the intended destination for the hybrid configuration, and any restrictions on cross-border data transfers. By consulting with legal and compliance teams and verifying that the proposed hybrid configuration aligns with all applicable regulations and contractual obligations, the organization ensures that data remains within permitted geographical boundaries, or that appropriate safeguards are in place for any necessary transfers. This proactive due diligence is essential for maintaining customer trust and avoiding legal repercussions. Incorrect approaches analysis. Proceeding with the hybrid configuration without a comprehensive review of data residency policies and contractual obligations represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This approach risks violating data protection laws and customer agreements, potentially leading to severe penalties, reputational damage, and loss of customer confidence. It demonstrates a disregard for the principle of data localization and the rights of data subjects. Assuming that data can be freely transferred to any location for hybrid cloud benefits without verifying compliance with data residency laws is another critical failure. This assumption ignores the legal framework that often mandates where certain types of data can be stored and processed, especially sensitive customer information. It also overlooks the contractual commitments made to customers regarding data handling. Relying solely on the technical capabilities of the IBM SmartCloud notes hybrid configuration to manage data residency without independent verification and legal/compliance sign-off is also a flawed approach. While the technology may offer features to assist with data management, it does not absolve the organization of its responsibility to ensure legal and contractual compliance. The technology is a tool, not a substitute for regulatory adherence. Professional reasoning. Professionals tasked with hybrid cloud configurations must adopt a risk-based approach that prioritizes compliance and legal adherence. The decision-making process should involve 1. Understanding the data. Clearly identify the type of data being handled and its sensitivity. 2. Regulatory mapping. Determine all applicable laws, regulations, and contractual obligations related to data residency and transfer for the specific jurisdiction. 3. Stakeholder consultation. Engage legal, compliance, and business units to ensure all perspectives and requirements are considered. 4. Technical assessment. Evaluate technical solutions in light of regulatory constraints, not the other way around. 5. Documentation and verification. Maintain thorough records of compliance checks and obtain necessary approvals before proceeding with any data migration or configuration changes. Question 10. Consider a scenario where a company is planning to migrate its on-premises IBM SmartCloud Notes data to a hybrid configuration. The project timeline is aggressive, and the IT team is eager to complete the data transfer as quickly as possible to minimize disruption. However, the data includes sensitive customer financial information. Which of the following approaches best aligns with regulatory requirements and professional best practices for this data migration? Option A. Prioritize the lowest-cost data transfer solution to meet the aggressive timeline, deferring any in-depth security reviews until after the migration is complete. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive risk assessment of the data transfer process, identify potential security vulnerabilities, and implement appropriate encryption and access controls before initiating the migration of sensitive customer data. Option C. Focus solely on the technical aspects of data transfer and ensure the data arrives at the destination, without explicitly considering the security implications or the sensitivity of the customer financial information being moved. Option D. Proceed with the data migration immediately using the fastest available transfer method, assuming that the existing on-premises security measures will adequately protect the data during transit. The correct answer is B. Conduct a comprehensive risk assessment of the data transfer process, identify potential security vulnerabilities, and implement appropriate encryption and access controls before initiating the migration of sensitive customer data. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between rapid deployment of a new hybrid email solution and the critical need for robust data security and compliance, especially when dealing with sensitive customer information. The decision-maker must balance business agility with regulatory obligations and potential risks. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the chosen approach not only meets technical requirements, but also adheres to the governing regulatory framework for data handling and privacy. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough risk assessment and the implementation of appropriate security controls before migrating sensitive data. This aligns with the principle of security by design and privacy by design, which are fundamental to responsible data management and compliance. Specifically, it ensures that the organization is not inadvertently exposing customer data to unauthorized access or breaches during the transition. Adhering to established data protection regulations, which mandate due diligence in safeguarding personal information, is paramount. This proactive stance minimizes the likelihood of regulatory penalties, reputational damage, and loss of customer trust. An incorrect approach that bypasses a security review and proceeds directly with data migration would be professionally unacceptable. This failure to conduct due diligence directly contravenes data protection regulations that require organizations to implement appropriate technical and organizational measures to ensure the security of personal data. Such an action would expose the organization to significant risks, including data breaches, unauthorized access, and non-compliance with data privacy laws, potentially leading to substantial fines and legal repercussions. Another incorrect approach, focusing solely on the technical feasibility of data transfer without considering the security implications or the sensitivity of the data being transferred, is also professionally unsound. This oversight ignores the regulatory obligation to protect data based on its classification and the potential impact of its compromise. It demonstrates a lack of understanding of the broader compliance landscape and the ethical responsibility to protect customer information. A third incorrect approach, prioritizing cost savings over security and compliance by selecting the cheapest, least secure data transfer method, is a clear violation of professional ethics and regulatory requirements. Regulations often stipulate that security measures must be proportionate to the risks involved, and choosing a method based solely on cost, without regard for its security posture, is irresponsible and exposes the organization to unacceptable risks. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured risk assessment framework. This framework should include identifying all relevant data and its sensitivity, understanding the applicable regulatory requirements, evaluating potential threats and vulnerabilities associated with the proposed solution, assessing the impact of a security incident, and then selecting a solution that mitigates identified risks to an acceptable level while ensuring compliance. This iterative process ensures that technical decisions are informed by security and compliance considerations from the outset. Question 11. The investigation demonstrates that during a planned IBM SmartCloud Notes hybrid configuration and onboard data transfer, the administrator opted for a single, large-volume data transfer to expedite service restoration, bypassing intermediate verification steps outlined in IBM's recommended migration procedures. This decision was made without a thorough risk assessment of potential data corruption or loss associated with such a consolidated approach. Which of the following approaches best reflects professional best practice for this scenario, prioritizing both operational efficiency and data integrity? Option A. Implement a phased data migration strategy, performing incremental transfers with rigorous verification and validation at each stage, ensuring alignment with IBM's documented hybrid configuration and onboard data transfer guidelines. Option B. Proceed with a single, large-volume data transfer, relying on post-migration integrity checks to identify and rectify any issues, prioritizing the speed of service restoration above all else. Option C. Migrate data in smaller batches but skip detailed verification for each batch, focusing only on the overall completion of the transfer to meet the deadline. Option D. Initiate the data transfer using a custom script developed by the administrator, deviating from IBM's official tools and documentation to achieve a faster transfer rate. The correct answer is A. Implement a phased data migration strategy, performing incremental transfers with rigorous verification and validation at each stage, ensuring alignment with IBM's documented hybrid configuration and onboard data transfer guidelines. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between rapid data migration for business continuity and the imperative to maintain data integrity and compliance with IBM SmartCloud Notes hybrid configuration and onboard data transfer guidelines. The administrator must balance the urgency of restoring service with the need for meticulous validation and adherence to established protocols. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a phased, validated migration strategy. This aligns with IBM's recommended procedures for hybrid configurations, ensuring that data is transferred accurately and completely before full cutover. It minimizes the risk of data corruption, loss, or inconsistencies that could lead to operational disruptions and potential compliance breaches. By performing incremental transfers and verifying each stage, the administrator can identify and rectify issues early, thereby safeguarding data integrity and user experience. This methodical approach is crucial for maintaining the trust and reliability expected in cloud-based services. An incorrect approach that involves a single, large-scale data transfer without intermediate validation is professionally unacceptable. This bypasses critical checkpoints designed to ensure data accuracy and completeness. Such a method significantly increases the risk of encountering unrecoverable data errors during or after the migration, leading to potential data loss and service downtime. This directly contravenes the principles of responsible data handling and the implicit requirements for maintaining data integrity within a hybrid cloud environment. Another incorrect approach, which focuses solely on the speed of transfer and neglects verification steps, is also professionally unsound. While speed is a consideration, it should not supersede the fundamental requirement for data accuracy. This approach risks migrating corrupted or incomplete data, which can have severe operational and business implications. It demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to adhere to best practices for data migration, potentially leading to a compromised system and user dissatisfaction. A third incorrect approach, which involves migrating data without consulting or adhering to IBM's specific hybrid configuration and onboard data transfer documentation, is a direct violation of professional responsibility. This demonstrates a disregard for established vendor guidelines and best practices, increasing the likelihood of configuration errors, compatibility issues, and migration failures. It shows a lack of commitment to understanding and implementing the solution as intended, which is a critical failure in a technical implementation scenario. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Understand the core requirements. Identify the business drivers for the migration e.g., speed, cost, functionality, and the technical constraints. 2. Consult relevant documentation. Thoroughly review IBM's official documentation for SmartCloud notes, hybrid configuration, and onboard data transfer. This is paramount for understanding the recommended procedures, potential pitfalls, and best practices. 3. Develop a phased plan. Break down the migration into manageable stages, incorporating validation and testing at each step. 4. Prioritize data integrity and verification. Ensure that mechanisms are in place to confirm the accuracy and completeness of transferred data at every stage. 5. Risk assessment and mitigation. Identify potential risks associated with each migration phase and develop strategies to mitigate them. 6. Communication. Maintain clear communication with stakeholders regarding the migration progress, any encountered issues, and the resolution plan. Question 12. Upon reviewing the initial project plan for configuring an IBM SmartCloud Notes hybrid environment, the technical team has identified a critical dependency on understanding where customer data will be physically stored and processed. Given the organization's diverse client base and varying international data protection mandates, what is the most prudent and compliant approach to address this data residency concern before proceeding with the hybrid configuration? Option A. Proactively conduct a detailed data residency assessment to identify all applicable legal and contractual requirements for data storage and processing locations, and ensure the planned hybrid configuration aligns with these findings. Option B. Prioritize the technical implementation of the hybrid environment and defer the discussion and resolution of data residency requirements until after the initial deployment is complete. Option C. Proceed with the hybrid configuration as planned, assuming IBM SmartCloud Notes default settings will ensure compliance with all relevant data residency regulations. Option D. Rely on the organization's general understanding of data privacy principles without conducting a specific assessment for this hybrid deployment, as it is unlikely to introduce new data residency challenges. The correct answer is A. Proactively conduct a detailed data residency assessment to identify all applicable legal and contractual requirements for data storage and processing locations, and ensure the planned hybrid configuration aligns with these findings. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between rapid deployment of a new hybrid cloud solution and the need for thorough due diligence regarding data residency and compliance. The pressure to deliver a functional hybrid environment quickly can lead to overlooking critical regulatory requirements, especially concerning where sensitive customer data is physically stored and processed. The complexity of hybrid configurations, where data can reside both on-premises and in the cloud, amplifies the risk of non-compliance if not managed meticulously. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes a comprehensive understanding of data residency requirements before proceeding with the hybrid configuration. This aligns with the principle of privacy by design and security by design, which are fundamental to many data protection regulations. By proactively identifying and documenting where data will reside and ensuring that these locations meet all applicable legal and contractual obligations, the organization mitigates the risk of regulatory penalties, reputational damage, and breaches of trust with its customers. This approach demonstrates a commitment to responsible data handling and adherence to governance frameworks. Incorrect approaches analysis. Proceeding with the hybrid configuration without a clear understanding of data residency requirements is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This approach risks violating data protection laws that mandate specific storage locations for certain types of data, such as personal identifiable information, PI, or financial data. It also fails to uphold contractual obligations with clients who may have explicit requirements regarding data sovereignty. This oversight can lead to severe penalties, including fines, legal action, and loss of business. Assuming that IBM SmartCloud Notes inherently handles data residency compliance without explicit configuration or verification is another critical failure. While cloud providers offer robust security and compliance features, the responsibility for configuring and utilizing these features correctly and ensuring they align with specific organizational and regulatory needs ultimately rests with the customer. Relying on a default assumption without due diligence is a breach of professional responsibility and can lead to unintended data exposure or noncompliance. Focusing solely on the technical aspects of the hybrid configuration and deferring data residency discussions until after deployment is a reactive and risky strategy. This approach creates a situation where compliance issues may be discovered late in the process, leading to costly rework, delays, and potential data migration challenges. It demonstrates a lack of foresight and a failure to integrate compliance into the project lifecycle from the outset, which is a hallmark of poor professional practice and a direct contravention of proactive compliance mandates. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that integrates compliance and risk management into every stage of a technology deployment. This involves 1. Information gathering, thoroughly understanding all relevant regulatory frameworks, contractual obligations, and internal policies related to data handling and residency. 2. Risk assessment, identifying potential compliance gaps and their associated risks before and during the configuration process. 3. Solution design, ensuring that the chosen technical solution and its configuration actively support compliance requirements. 4. Verification and validation, implementing checks and balances to confirm that the deployed solution adheres to all identified requirements. 5. Continuous monitoring, establishing processes for ongoing oversight to adapt to evolving regulations and operational changes. Question 13. Strategic planning requires a clear understanding of regulatory obligations when implementing hybrid cloud solutions. When configuring IBM SmartCloud notes in a hybrid environment and planning the onboard data transfer, which of the following approaches best ensures compliance with data residency and privacy laws? Option A. Assuming that the chosen data transfer solution inherently complies with all relevant data residency regulations without independent verification. Option B. Confirming specific data residency requirements for all data types and ensuring the chosen data transfer method explicitly meets these confirmed requirements before proceeding. Option C. Prioritizing the fastest and most cost-effective data transfer method, as efficiency is typically a key compliance consideration. Option D. Relying solely on the vendor's general compliance statements without investigating how they apply to the specific jurisdictional data being transferred. The correct answer is B. Confirming specific data residency requirements for all data types and ensuring the chosen data transfer method explicitly meets these confirmed requirements before proceeding. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in hybrid cloud environments where data residency and compliance requirements are paramount. The professional must balance the technical feasibility of data transfer with strict adherence to regulatory mandates governing data location and privacy. The challenge lies in interpreting and applying these regulations to a specific technical solution, ensuring that the chosen method for onboarding data to IBM SmartCloud notes hybrid configuration does not inadvertently violate any compliance obligations. The risk of noncompliance, including potential fines, reputational damage, and loss of customer trust, necessitates a rigorous and informed decision-making process. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes a thorough understanding and explicit confirmation of data residency requirements before initiating any data transfer. This involves consulting relevant regulatory documentation and potentially seeking legal or compliance expert advice to interpret how these regulations apply to the specific data being transferred and its intended destination within the hybrid environment. By ensuring that the chosen data transfer method aligns with these confirmed requirements, the professional upholds best practices by proactively mitigating compliance risks. This demonstrates a commitment to data governance and regulatory adherence, which is a cornerstone of responsible IT management in regulated industries. Incorrect approaches analysis. Proceeding with data transfer based on a general assumption of compliance without explicit verification is a significant regulatory failure. This approach risks violating data residency laws, which can lead to severe penalties. It also demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a disregard for the importance of data privacy and security mandates. Relying solely on the vendor's IBM's, assurances without independent verification of how their solution meets specific jurisdictional requirements is also professionally unsound. While vendors aim for compliance, the ultimate responsibility for adhering to regulations rests with the implementing organization. This approach outsources critical compliance judgment, which is a failure of professional responsibility, and could lead to regulatory breaches if the vendor's interpretation or implementation differs from the specific jurisdictional demands. Choosing a data transfer method based purely on speed or cost, without adequately assessing its compliance implications, is a direct contravention of regulatory frameworks that often prioritize data protection and residency over operational efficiency or economic factors. This demonstrates a flawed decision-making process that neglects fundamental legal and ethical obligations. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making framework that begins with identifying all applicable regulatory requirements related to data residency and privacy. This should be followed by a comprehensive assessment of the technical solutions available, evaluating each against the identified regulatory obligations. When in doubt, seeking clarification from legal counsel or compliance officers is essential. The decision should be documented, clearly outlining the rationale, the regulatory basis for the chosen approach, and any risk mitigation strategies implemented. This systematic process ensures that technical decisions are grounded in legal and ethical compliance, safeguarding both the organization and its stakeholders. Question 14. Examination of the data shows that a client requires migration of their IBM SmartCloud Notes data to a hybrid configuration. The client operates under a regulatory framework that strictly governs data residency for sensitive customer information, requiring that such data remain within specific geographic boundaries. The proposed hybrid configuration involves data synchronization between on-premises servers and IBM SmartCloud Notes. Which of the following approaches best ensures compliance with the client's data residency requirements during this configuration and data transfer process? Option A. Initiate the data transfer immediately, relying on the client's general statement that their data can be moved, without independently verifying the specific data residency laws applicable to their customer information. Option B. Prioritize the technical efficiency and speed of the data migration, addressing any potential data residency concerns only if they are explicitly raised by the client during or after the transfer. Option C. Proceed with the hybrid configuration and data transfer, assuming that IBM SmartCloud Notes standard security and compliance features will automatically satisfy all data residency mandates for the client's jurisdiction. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive review of the client's data residency regulations and consult with legal and compliance experts to confirm the proposed hybrid configuration and data transfer methods adhere to these specific requirements before proceeding. The correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive review of the client's data residency regulations and consult with legal and compliance experts to confirm the proposed hybrid configuration and data transfer methods adhere to these specific requirements before proceeding. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in hybrid cloud environments where data residency and compliance requirements are paramount. The professional must balance the technical feasibility of data transfer with the strict legal and regulatory obligations concerning customer data. The challenge lies in interpreting and applying the specific data protection regulations relevant to the jurisdiction of the client, ensuring that no data is moved or processed in a manner that violates these laws. The pressure to complete the migration efficiently can create a temptation to overlook or misinterpret these critical compliance aspects, making careful judgment essential. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the client's data residency requirements and the applicable regulatory framework before initiating any data transfer. This includes identifying the specific data types, their sensitivity, and the jurisdictions where they are legally permitted to reside and be processed, consulting with legal and compliance teams to interpret these regulations and confirm the suitability of the proposed transfer method is a best professional practice. This ensures that the data transfer aligns with legal obligations, such as those potentially outlined in GDPR, if applicable to the jurisdiction, or similar data protection laws, preventing unauthorized cross-border data movement and maintaining customer trust and regulatory adherence. Incorrect approaches analysis. Proceeding with data transfer based solely on technical convenience without verifying data residency and compliance would be a significant regulatory failure. This approach disregards the legal mandates governing data protection and privacy, potentially leading to violations of data sovereignty laws and severe penalties. It demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to uphold professional ethical standards regarding client data security and privacy. Assuming that standard IBM SmartCloud notes hybrid configurations inherently comply with all data residency requirements without specific verification is another regulatory failure. While IBM provides robust security, the responsibility for ensuring compliance with specific client jurisdiction laws ultimately rests with the implementing professional and their organization. This assumption bypasses the critical step of validating the configuration against the client's unique legal obligations, risking noncompliance. Relying on the client's general assurance that data can be transferred without explicit confirmation of their understanding of their own data residency laws is also professionally unsound. While client input is valuable, the professional has a duty to ensure the legality and compliance of the actions taken on their behalf. This approach outsources the critical compliance verification responsibility, which is a failure in professional judgment and adherence to regulatory due diligence. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making framework that prioritizes compliance and risk assessment. This framework should include 1. Understanding the regulatory landscape. Clearly identify and understand all applicable data protection laws and regulations relevant to the client's data and jurisdiction. 2. Data classification and sensitivity assessment. Categorize data based on its sensitivity and residency requirements. 3. Compliance verification. Actively verify that any proposed data transfer or configuration meets all identified regulatory requirements. This may involve consulting legal counsel or compliance officers. 4. Risk assessment. Evaluate the potential risks associated with different data transfer approaches, focusing on compliance and security. 5. Documentation. Maintain thorough documentation of all compliance checks, decisions made, and the rationale behind them. 6. Communication. Maintain open communication with the client and internal stakeholders regarding compliance status and any potential issues. Question 15. Performance analysis shows that a proposed IBM SmartCloud Notes hybrid configuration offers significant performance improvements for end users accessing mail and calendar data. However, the organization operates under strict data residency regulations that mandate certain types of sensitive data must remain within the national borders. What is the most critical step to ensure compliance before proceeding with the hybrid configuration? Option A. Focus solely on optimizing the network latency for the hybrid setup, assuming data protection is handled by default. Option B. Implement the hybrid configuration and then address any compliance issues that arise during post-implementation audits. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive data residency and compliance impact assessment to map data flows and identify potential conflicts with regulatory requirements. Option D. Proceed with the hybrid configuration immediately, relying on the vendor's standard security features to protect data. The correct answer is C. Conduct a comprehensive data residency and compliance impact assessment to map data flows and identify potential conflicts with regulatory requirements. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in hybrid cloud environments where data residency and compliance requirements are paramount. The professional must balance the technical benefits of a hybrid configuration with the stringent regulatory obligations concerning data location and access. The difficulty lies in interpreting and applying the specific data protection regulations relevant to the jurisdiction, ensuring that the chosen configuration does not inadvertently lead to noncompliance, which could result in significant penalties and reputational damage. The need for a thorough impact assessment before implementation is critical to proactively identify and mitigate these risks. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves conducting a comprehensive data residency and compliance impact assessment. This assessment must specifically evaluate how the proposed hybrid configuration, including the onboard data transfer mechanisms, aligns with the applicable regulatory framework. It requires a deep understanding of where data will reside, both in the cloud and on-premises, how it will be transferred, and who will have access to it. The assessment should identify any potential conflicts with data sovereignty laws, privacy regulations, and industry-specific compliance mandates. By proactively identifying these risks and developing mitigation strategies, such as data masking, encryption, or specific access controls, the organization can ensure a compliant and secure hybrid deployment. This aligns with best professional practice by prioritizing risk management and regulatory adherence before technical implementation, thereby safeguarding the organization. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing the hybrid configuration without a prior data residency and compliance impact assessment is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This approach demonstrates a disregard for the organization's legal obligations and exposes it to substantial risks. It prioritizes expediency over compliance, which is professionally unacceptable. Focusing solely on the technical performance benefits of the hybrid solution while neglecting data residency requirements is another failure. This overlooks the fundamental principle that technical solutions must operate within a legal and ethical framework. It can lead to unintentional data breaches or non-compliance with data localization laws, resulting in severe penalties. Assuming that standard encryption protocols are sufficient to meet all data residency and compliance needs without a specific assessment is also a flawed approach. While encryption is crucial, it does not automatically address all aspects of data residency, such as the physical location of servers or specific jurisdictional access rights. This assumption can lead to a false sense of security and actual noncompliance. Professional reasoning. Professionals in this field must adopt a risk-based approach. The decision-making process should begin with a thorough understanding of the regulatory landscape applicable to the organization's data. Before any technical implementation, a detailed impact assessment is essential. This assessment should involve collaboration with legal and compliance teams to ensure all regulatory nuances are considered. When evaluating technical solutions, the primary criteria should be their ability to meet both performance and compliance requirements. If a proposed solution poses compliance risks, alternative configurations or additional controls must be explored and implemented. Continuous monitoring and periodic reassessment are also vital to maintain compliance in evolving regulatory environments. Question 16. Strategic planning requires a thorough evaluation of potential risks and compliance implications before implementing a hybrid IBM SmartCloud Notes configuration that involves onboard data transfer. Which of the following approaches best ensures adherence to data protection regulations and ethical data handling practices? Option A. Focus on selecting the most cost-effective data transfer and storage solutions to minimize operational expenses without a specific compliance review. Option B. Implement the hybrid configuration based on general IT best practices for cloud deployments without a specific assessment of data residency and privacy laws. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive data protection impact assessment (DPIA) to identify and mitigate privacy risks associated with data flows, storage, and processing in the hybrid environment. Option D. Prioritize technical performance and system responsiveness during the configuration process, assuming vendor defaults are compliant. Correct answer is C. Conduct a comprehensive data protection impact assessment (DPIA) to identify and mitigate privacy risks associated with data flows, storage, and processing in the hybrid environment. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in hybrid cloud deployments where data residency and compliance requirements are paramount. The professional is tasked with configuring IBM SmartCloud Notes in a hybrid environment, which inherently involves data transfer and storage across different locations. The core challenge lies in balancing the technical requirements of a hybrid setup with the stringent regulatory obligations concerning data protection and privacy. Misinterpreting or overlooking these requirements can lead to significant legal penalties, reputational damage, and a breach of trust with clients. The need for a proactive and thorough impact assessment before implementation is critical to mitigate these risks. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves conducting a comprehensive data protection impact assessment, DPIA, specifically tailored to the hybrid IBM SmartCloud Notes configuration and the onboard data transfer process. This aligns with the principles of data protection by design and by default, as mandated by relevant data privacy regulations. A DPIA systematically identifies and assesses the risks to individuals' privacy and data protection rights arising from the processing of personal data. For a hybrid notes deployment, This would involve evaluating data flows, storage locations, both on-premises and in IBM's cloud, access controls, encryption methods, and the security measures in place for data in transit and at rest. It ensures that potential privacy risks are identified and mitigated before the system goes live, thereby demonstrating due diligence and compliance. This proactive stance is essential for maintaining trust and adhering to legal obligations. Incorrect approach is analysis. Focusing solely on technical performance metrics without a corresponding data protection assessment is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This approach ignores the fundamental requirement to protect personal data, which is a cornerstone of data privacy laws. It prioritizes efficiency or functionality over the rights and freedoms of individuals whose data is being processed, leading to potential breaches of confidentiality and integrity. Implementing the hybrid configuration based on vendor default settings without a specific assessment of their compliance with data residency and protection laws is also professionally unacceptable. Vendor defaults may not align with the specific regulatory landscape of the organization's operating jurisdiction or its client's data sovereignty requirements. This can result in unintentional noncompliance, exposing the organization to legal repercussions and data breaches. Prioritizing cost savings by choosing the least expensive data transfer and storage options without evaluating their security and compliance implications is another critical failure. Cost should not supersede the legal and ethical obligations to safeguard personal data. Inadequate security measures due to cost cutting can lead to data breaches, unauthorized access, and significant financial and reputational damage, far outweighing any initial savings. Professional reasoning. Professionals in this domain must adopt a risk-based approach, integrating compliance and data protection considerations from the outset of any project. The decision-making process should involve 1. Identifying all applicable data protection regulations and contractual obligations relevant to the data being handled and the jurisdictions involved. 2. Performing a thorough impact assessment such as a DPIA to understand the potential risks to data subjects. 3. Evaluating technical solutions against these identified risks and compliance requirements, not just performance benchmarks. 4. Documenting all assessments, decision, and mitigation strategies to demonstrate due diligence. 5. Regularly reviewing and updating assessments as the system evolves or regulations change. This systematic and proactive approach ensures that technical solutions are implemented in a manner that is both effective and compliant, safeguarding both the organization and the individuals whose data is entrusted to it. Question 17. Analysis of the potential business and operational disruptions associated with migrating IBM SmartCloud Notes data to a hybrid configuration. What is the most critical component of a comprehensive impact assessment to ensure minimal user downtime and data integrity? Option A. A post-migration performance monitoring strategy to identify and resolve any technical issues that arise. Option B. A thorough assessment of user workflows, business processes, and stakeholder feedback to identify potential points of friction and disruption. Option C. A detailed technical migration plan that outlines server configurations and data synchronization schedules. Option D. A comprehensive security audit of the existing on-premises infrastructure and the proposed cloud environment. The correct answer is C. A detailed technical migration plan that outlines server configurations and data synchronization schedules. Explanation. Scenario analysis. Implementing a hybrid IBM SmartCloud Notes configuration involves migrating data and services between on-premises and cloud environments. This process inherently carries risks related to data integrity, availability, and security. A key challenge is ensuring that the impact of this transition on end users and business operations is thoroughly understood and mitigated before, during, and after the migration. Failure to conduct a comprehensive impact assessment can lead to unexpected downtime, data loss, user dissatisfaction, and non-compliance with data handling regulations. The complexity arises from the need to consider technical dependencies, user workflows, and potential business disruption across different systems and user groups. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a structured impact assessment that systematically identifies potential disruptions to business operations, user productivity, and data accessibility. This assessment should cover all phases of the hybrid configuration and data transfer, from initial planning and testing to full deployment and ongoing management. It necessitates engaging stakeholders from IT, business units, and end-user representatives to gather comprehensive requirements and feedback. The assessment should define clear metrics for success and establish contingency plans for identified risks. This aligns with best practices for IT service management and change control, ensuring that the migration is executed with minimal negative consequences and in accordance with any relevant data protection and privacy regulations that mandate the safeguarding of user data and business continuity. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach is to solely focus on the technical aspects of data migration, neglecting the user experience and business process implications. This fails to acknowledge that the success of a hybrid solution is not just about data transfer, but also about enabling seamless operations for users. This approach risks significant user resistance, productivity loss, and potential business disruption, which could indirectly lead to regulatory scrutiny if critical business functions are compromised. Another incorrect approach is to assume that existing security protocols are sufficient for the hybrid environment, without a specific assessment of the new data flows and access points. This oversight can create security vulnerabilities, potentially leading to data breaches or unauthorized access, which would be a direct violation of data protection laws and regulations. A third incorrect approach is to defer the impact assessment until after the migration has begun or is completed. This reactive stance prevents proactive risk mitigation and makes it difficult to address issues without causing further disruption. It demonstrates a lack of due diligence and can result in significant financial and reputational damage, as well as potential non-compliance with regulatory requirements that mandate risk management and change control. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a proactive and holistic approach to impact assessment. This involves 1. Defining the scope. Clearly outline what aspects of the business and IT infrastructure will be affected by the hybrid configuration and data transfer. 2. Stakeholder engagement. Involve all relevant parties, including end users, to understand their workflows and potential pain points. 3. Risk identification and analysis. Systematically identify potential technical, operational, and security risks. 4. Mitigation planning. Develop strategies to prevent or minimize the impact of identified risks. 5. Contingency planning. Establish backup plans and rollback procedures in case of unforeseen issues. 6. Communication. Maintain clear and consistent communication with all stakeholders throughout the process. This structured decision-making process ensures that all potential impacts are considered, risks are managed effectively, and the implementation aligns with both business objectives and regulatory obligations. Question 18. The control framework reveals that a hybrid configuration for IBM SmartCloud notes is being implemented, involving the transfer of on-premises data to the cloud. Which of the following approaches best ensures compliance with data protection regulations and maintains data integrity throughout this process? Option A. Proceed with data transfer based on the assumption that all data is of low sensitivity and that existing network security is sufficient. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment that includes data classification, risk evaluation, and validation of security controls before initiating data transfer. Option C. Execute the impact assessment solely by the IT operations team, without consulting legal, compliance, or security departments. Option D. Perform a technical assessment of data transfer speeds and bandwidth only, without considering data classification or security controls. The correct answer is B. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment that includes data classification, risk evaluation, and validation of security controls before initiating data transfer. Explanation. The scenario presents a common challenge in hybrid cloud environments, ensuring data integrity and compliance during a migration or configuration change. The professional challenge lies in balancing the need for efficient data transfer with the stringent requirements of data protection and regulatory adherence, particularly when dealing with sensitive information that might be part of a SmartCloud notes deployment. The complexity arises from the distributed nature of hybrid solutions and the potential for data to reside in multiple locations, each with its own security considerations. The correct approach, focusing on a comprehensive impact assessment that includes data classification, risk evaluation, and validation of security controls, represents best professional practice because it is proactive and systematic. This aligns with general data governance principles and is implicitly supported by regulatory frameworks that mandate due diligence in data handling. Specifically, it ensures that any changes to the SmartCloud Notes hybrid configuration are made with a full understanding of the data's sensitivity, the potential risks of exposure or corruption during transfer, and the adequacy of existing or planned security measures. This approach minimizes the likelihood of data breaches, compliance violations, and service disruptions, thereby safeguarding both the organization's assets and its reputation. An incorrect approach that bypasses a formal impact assessment and proceeds with data transfer based on assumptions about data sensitivity or security controls is professionally unacceptable. This failure constitutes a direct violation of the principle of due care and diligence, which is a cornerstone of most regulatory and ethical guidelines for IT professionals. It increases the risk of unauthorized access, data loss, or noncompliance with data protection laws, leading to potential fines, legal action, and reputational damage. Another incorrect approach, which involves performing the impact assessment but neglecting to involve relevant stakeholders such as legal, compliance, and security teams, is also professionally flawed. This siloed approach can lead to incomplete risk identification and inadequate mitigation strategies, as critical perspectives and requirements may be overlooked. It fails to meet the ethical obligation to ensure that all relevant parties are informed and that the organization's overall compliance posture is maintained. A third incorrect approach, focusing solely on the technical aspects of data transfer speed and efficiency, without adequately considering the data's classification and the associated security implications, is equally problematic. While technical performance is important, it should not supersede the fundamental requirements of data protection and regulatory compliance. This narrow focus can result in data being transferred in an insecure manner or being subjected to inappropriate access controls, thereby creating significant compliance and security risks. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured risk management framework. This begins with understanding the scope of the change and the data involved. Next, a thorough impact assessment should be conducted, encompassing data classification, identification of applicable regulations, and a detailed risk analysis. This assessment must involve all relevant stakeholders to ensure a holistic view. Based on the assessment, appropriate mitigation strategies and security controls should be designed and implemented. Finally, ongoing monitoring and validation are crucial to ensure the effectiveness of the implemented controls and to adapt to any evolving risks or regulatory changes. Question 19. Compliance review shows that a planned update to the IBM SmartCloud Notes hybrid configuration involves significant changes to data synchronization protocols. Which approach to the impact assessment for this change is most likely to ensure adherence to data protection regulations and maintain operational integrity? Option A. A detailed assessment of the on-premises IBM Notes server hardware and software configuration, ensuring compatibility with the update. Option B. An impact assessment that thoroughly analyzes the data flow between on-premises and cloud environments, identifying potential security vulnerabilities and compliance gaps related to data transit and storage. Option C. An assessment that prioritizes the speed of deployment for the update, with a post-implementation review of any reported data integrity issues. Option D. A review focused solely on the user experience and application functionality post-update, without deep consideration of the underlying data transfer mechanisms. The correct answer is A. A detailed assessment of the on-premises IBM Notes server hardware and software configurations, ensuring compatibility with the update. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in hybrid cloud environments where data resides both on-premises and in a cloud service. The core difficulty lies in ensuring that the impact assessment for a planned change to the IBM SmartCloud Notes hybrid configuration adequately considers the data transfer aspects, particularly the security and compliance implications of moving sensitive information. A superficial assessment that only focuses on the technical configuration of the Notes servers without deeply examining the data's journey and its regulatory context is professionally risky. The challenge is to move beyond a purely technical view to a holistic, risk-based approach that aligns with data protection principles. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a comprehensive impact assessment that explicitly integrates the data transfer mechanisms and their associated risks into the evaluation of the hybrid configuration changes. This aligns with best practices for data governance and cloud security, which mandate understanding data flows, identifying sensitive data, and assessing the security controls at each stage of data transit and storage. For a U.S.-regulated environment, assuming this exam context, this would involve considering frameworks like NIST Cybersecurity Framework, which emphasizes identifying and protecting critical assets, including data, and responding to and recovering from cybersecurity events. It also implicitly addresses requirements under regulations like HIPAA, if health data is involved, or SOX, if financial data is involved, by ensuring that data protection measures are considered throughout the lifecycle of the change. This approach demonstrates due diligence and a proactive stance on risk management. Incorrect approaches analysis, focusing solely on the on-premises server configuration without considering the cloud component's data transfer implications, is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It overlooks potential vulnerabilities introduced during data migration or synchronization between the on-premises and cloud environments, which could lead to data breaches or non-compliance with data residency or privacy laws. Similarly, an assessment that only examines the cloud-side configuration and data storage, neglecting how data arrives there from the on-premises environment, creates a blind spot. This failure to assess the entire data path can result in inadequate security controls for data in transit. An approach that prioritizes technical implementation speed over a thorough risk assessment, even if it seems efficient, is also a failure. It suggests a disregard for the potential downstream consequences of inadequate data protection, which can lead to severe penalties, reputational damage, and loss of customer trust. This demonstrates a lack of professional responsibility in safeguarding sensitive information. Professional reasoning. Professionals tasked with hybrid cloud configurations must adopt a risk-centric, data-aware approach. The decision-making process should begin with identifying all data flows associated with the proposed change, classifying the sensitivity of the data, and then evaluating the security and compliance controls at each point in the data lifecycle. This involves understanding the regulatory landscape applicable to the data being handled and ensuring that the impact assessment explicitly addresses how the proposed changes might affect compliance. When evaluating different approaches, professionals should ask, does this assessment comprehensively cover the security and compliance of the data throughout its journey, both on-premises and in the cloud? If the answer is no, the approach is insufficient. Question 20. Research into the impact of transferring sensitive customer PII from an on-premises IBM Domino server to IBM SmartCloud notes. What is the most critical factor to consider during the impact assessment to ensure regulatory compliance and data security? Option A. The volume of data being transferred and the estimated time for completion of the migration. Option B. The number of users who will access the data once it is migrated to IBM SmartCloud notes. Option C. The specific data residency requirements and the security controls implemented within IBM SmartCloud notes to protect the data post-transfer. Option D. The existing network bandwidth between the on-premises environment and IBM SmartCloud notes. The correct answer is C. The specific data residency requirements and the security controls implemented within IBM SmartCloud notes to protect the data post-transfer. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in hybrid cloud environments where sensitive data resides both on-premises and in IBM SmartCloud notes. The core difficulty lies in ensuring that the impact assessment for data transfer accurately reflects the security and compliance implications across both environments, especially when regulatory requirements dictate specific data handling and protection measures. A superficial assessment risks overlooking critical vulnerabilities or non-compliance, leading to potential data breaches, regulatory fines, and reputational damage. The professional challenge is to conduct a thorough, risk-based assessment that considers the unique characteristics of each data location and the interdependencies created by the hybrid configuration. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a comprehensive impact assessment that explicitly considers the data's location both before and after the transfer, the security controls in place at each stage, and the relevant regulatory compliance obligations. This aligns with best practices for data governance and security in hybrid cloud deployments. Specifically, It requires identifying the types of data being transferred, assessing the sensitivity of that data, evaluating the security of the transfer mechanism, and understanding how the data will be protected once it reaches its destination within IBM SmartCloud nodes. This approach ensures that all potential risks are identified and mitigated, and that the transfer complies with applicable regulations, such as those governing data privacy and residency. Incorrect approach is analysis. Focusing solely on the on-premises data without considering the security posture and compliance requirements of IBM Smart Cloud nodes is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This oversight can lead to data being transferred to an environment that does not offer adequate protection, thereby violating data privacy regulations and potentially exposing sensitive information. Similarly, an assessment that only considers the destination environment and neglects the security of the data during transit and its origin point is incomplete. This failure to address the entire data lifecycle during the transfer process can result in data interception or unauthorized access during transit, leading to breaches and noncompliance. An approach that relies on generic security assumptions without specific validation for the hybrid context is also professionally unacceptable. It fails to acknowledge the unique risks introduced by integrating on-premises systems with cloud services, and can lead to a false sense of security, leaving the organization vulnerable. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach to impact assessments for data transfer in hybrid environments. This involves a systematic process of identifying assets data, threats, potential breaches, unauthorized access, vulnerabilities, weaknesses in security controls, and the likelihood and impact of those threats occurring. The assessment must be granular, considering the specific data types, the security measures at the source, during transit, and at the destination, and all applicable regulatory requirements. This structured methodology ensures that decisions are informed by a clear understanding of the risks and that appropriate controls are implemented to protect data and ensure compliance. Regular review and updates to the assessment are also crucial as environments and regulations evolve.